Mr. Transformers 96 here with another movie review. This time we have a review for Incredibles 2. This will be a spoiler-filled review. I was able to see the double feature in IMAX, which was very fun. First time Incredibles 1 has ever been in IMAX before, and that was just a nice experience. Also, it was a day early, so I was able to see this movie on Wednesday, which is why you're getting a review on Thursday before the first showings on Thursday night, take place. So, yeah, this will be spoiler-filled, because, of course, I have seen it. So yeah, spoilers will be aplenty. But going over to this movie, first of all, I'm a huge Disney fan and Pixar fan in particular. I absolutely love Pixar. The first Incredibles was one of my favorite movies as a kid. It's something that's a childhood movie that I love, of course. And watching it last night, I lost no respect for it. It was just an excellent film, the first one. So I had a lot of hopes for this one. I was very much looking forward to it. And yeah, it's one of my most anticipated movies of the year, I'd say. So I was very excited for this movie and what it would bring. So, before I go into what I thought of Incredibles 2, just want to quickly touch on the short that was played in front of Incredibles. It's adorable. I absolutely love it because it's everything that I want from a short, It's very cute, it's fun, it's funny, and it has tremendous heart to it, and it's all told, without any dialogue, of course. So, I love those little shorts, Sometimes they can be quite special. This was one of the best ones, I'd say, because I enjoy Pixar shorts, and this one did not disappoint. So, really enjoyed the short in front of it. First of all, humor in this movie, I thought this movie was very funny. This is a very fun movie. So anything that I say in this review, don't get me wrong, I still feel that this is a very fun movie. It's funny. I was laughing quite a few times and had a lot of fun with a lot of the scenes of the movie, to be quite honest. However, I feel like, just in general, I'll go into detail as to, all of this, but in general, I feel like this movie is more a bunch of a collective amounts of just short, kind of TV special episodes of Incredibles smashed into one movie. It doesn't feel like a very cohesive film as a whole. It feels like it's a lot of little things that don't really push the story forward at all, but that are really fun and funny, and therefore would make great TV specials, like I said. So there's a lot of this that I found disappointing as a movie in general, even though I enjoyed watching the movie. It was very fun, but it certainly missed a lot of the heart and the sophisticated themes of the first movie. That stuff is really lost, almost completely lost in this film, which is incredibly disappointing, to be quite honest. I find that going into all the characters in general, because none of them really has a clear character arc. Some of them have character arcs that are started, with Mr. Incredible, where he is resenting his wife almost for being chosen, and he wants to be out in the action, but instead he's got to be home and support the kids. And that's a nice story arc to start with, but there's really no resolution. There's no moment at the end where he has the ability to do something, but he knows that his wife should be the one doing it, and then he tells her to go and that he'll do something else, that's the type of thing that in classical story structure for a film that would happen, and that really doesn't happen here. So you have a story arc that's introduced, and it's a nice one, but it's never really resolved, which is unfortunate. Same thing with Mrs. Incredible, with her struggle between what to do and whether she believes that breaking the law is right if it means it could come to changing the law, things like that. They're great story arcs to begin with, but there's no real resolution. The one that has resolution is Violet, and in the fact that at the end she's given the opportunity to go help fight, but she says, no, I want to protect Jack, because that's how my power is better served. She puts the logical, how would I benefit the situation, rather than what I want to do first. So that's the only one that really has a clear, storyline that is resolved. A lot of these characters have storylines that are brought up, but they're never truly, fully resolved, which is unfortunate. But Mr. Incredible, he was more comedic in this movie than he is in the first one. I feel like this movie, just like all Pixar sequels, really, Pixar, I mean, at one point they said that they would never make sequels, and now they're making sequels because they need to, money-wise. I mean, just because sequels are a guaranteed win, and they're safe bets, and Hollywood is very risk-averse, so that is why they're making sequels. But to Pixar, when they make a sequel, they almost resent the fact that they have to make a sequel, so then they just say, well, here's what the audience wants. Oh, sorry, my poster fell. It looks fine though. So they're like, you know, this is what the audience wants. So with Cars 1, they said, oh, you know, Mater was the real standout in that. So Cars 2, focus on Mater. Finding Nemo, you know, what was the standout in that? What was the audience favorite? Oh, it was Dory, focus on that. Incredibles, what was the favorite? What was the standout? Jack, focus on that. Jack is in this movie a tremendous amount. I was very worried this would be the Jack show, and it really turned out to be the Jack show, because it's like a bunch of Jack shorts, which is, and don't get me wrong, I found them extremely fun. I laughed a lot during them. I had a lot of fun with them, but they don't progress the story in the slightest. They're really there just to be fun, just to give the audience like what they think they want. And I think for the most part, that is what the audience wants. Everybody loves Jack, and even though it doesn't serve the story, he's fun to watch, and he goes into and does fun things. So I think that's what people love, because, I mean, some of my favorite scenes of this movie are Jack fighting the raccoon. I thought that was hysterical. I love the fact that he sees the raccoon as the robber that he's watching on TV, and I expected that to go down where the raccoon's all pissed at him and he starts beating up on Jack, but then Jack like lights on fire, does something like spectacular like that, and then the raccoon's like, oh crap, and you know, is all scared of him, and then the tables have turned. That's what I expected that fight to be, and it wasn't. Like, it was, the raccoon was just pissed at Jack the entire time, like always wanting to fight him, like he could take him, and I thought that was absolutely hysterical. I had a lot of fun with that, although again, that scene does nothing for the story. It does nothing for any of the characters, and it's kind of disappointing in that manner, but it was very fun. Like, that scene is the perfect short, like, that should be played on TV, you know? Like, it doesn't, it's really fun, it's funny, but it doesn't affect the overarching storyline. Also, Edna watching Jack, again, very funny. It's a great way to get Edna in the movie, but it's out of place. It teaches them nothing. I mean, she gives them a device that allows them to predict when Jack would do something, but it doesn't really help them at all. That device is never used, like, in the third act to, like, fix something grand. Really, the only thing that they do to suppress his powers is to get him to turn off his firepower. That's really the only thing that it does, and even that's not like 100% necessary. Like, for the story in general, not having that device wouldn't affect the story, because mainly the story is about Elastigirl and what she goes off to do. But it was a way to get Edna back in this movie, because she really doesn't fit in this movie otherwise, and she still doesn't fit. But this way they could get her in the movie, and it was adorable, especially when Jack started acting like Edna. Very funny. I love that stuff, and that's again a great short, but it doesn't really help the story in general. The extra heroes that were introduced in this movie, all of them are, I don't like them. They're very strange, because first of all, well, we know nothing about them. I mean, I think that some of them might have some interesting backstories, particularly like Void or something, but none of that is ever given to us, so they're very hollow characters, and they have weird designs. Like, their designs don't even, to me, they don't quite fit in the Incredibles world. They're very oversimplified. They look like they would be like, if they did like a spin-off show on TV, but in like the world of Incredibles. That's kind of how I picture them, because their designs are more simplistic than the others, and we know nothing about them, and they're just bright and colorful, you know, and they don't really pose much of a threat either. The only one that I thought was rather clever is, well, Void's power is not unique, but the way it's used is quite unique in this movie. She does a lot of cool things, especially when fighting Violet. The Violet versus Void, that was a very nice fight. But again, like, these characters, they're nothing more than just hollow, mindless villains, I guess, you know. They don't really serve anything else. Then we have some of the new characters, the brother and sister duo, them, like, you know, who Screenslaver was. I went back and forth about who Screenslaver was for the longest time for this movie. At one point I thought maybe it was Tony Reidinger, considering he wears like sneakers and stuff, so I thought that would be, that it could be him if he was a character that we already knew, you know, something like that. And it turns out that Screenslaver it's kind of like the Mandarin. He's a character that was created. He's not a character himself, basically, and there's somebody else that's controlling him, essentially, and that's the sister in the movie, which I figured she was the villain, but I thought it was the guy too. So the surprise was that the brother wasn't a villain also. It was just the sister. So that was kind of, it's an interesting surprise in that manner. However, her story, if you look at it, she's very similar to Syndrome from the first one. She had a traumatic experience with the hero, which makes her want to destroy the heroes. She uses her knowledge to build tech in order to outsmart them and to beat them, even though she doesn't have powers, and she hires a hero to do work while she's secretly undermining them. That's exactly what Syndrome's plot was in the first movie. However, she's not as good as Syndrome as a villain, considering her traumatic experience with a hero is never shown. It's just told, and you should never just tell, you should show in film. It's a visual medium. As well as also Syndrome, the way that he turned on heroes was more extreme because he was such a fan of heroes. That's something that we never see with her. She was not like a big fan of heroes. She didn't idolize them, and then that was all crushed, and that's what turned her bitter. Nothing like that. It was just that she is upset at what heroes, caused her parents to do, basically. And that's not even shown. It's just heard, basically, because you never see her. I'd love to see more interactions with her and how she dealt with this and how this affected her and things like that. And again, that's not shown. So she's got almost exactly the same motivations, and she goes about it in the same way that Syndrome did, but she does it in a way where we're not as emotionally connected to Syndrome because we actually saw what Syndrome did, and the heroes that disappointed him are our main characters, which it brings us into the story more. So overall, I enjoyed. Also, I will say the Screenslaver fight in the middle of the movie, kind of the misdirect of actually having a character of Screenslaver, that was cool. That was a really cool fight. I love that when they were in like that box section, they almost had like a 2D animation to them because of all the spirals outside of it, which was really cool. Like I enjoyed the visual art of this film. Of course, Pixar's they pioneered 3D animation, so they are always trying to kind of best themselves in each movie and introduce something new. And I found that some of the CGI or some of the animation was really quite special. So I enjoyed that from a technical standpoint really nicely. Then just the future of Pixar. The future of Incredibles. This movie's going to do very well. I'll be very surprised if it does not make $1 billion, considering their last sequel, Finding Dory, was one of the biggest movies and made over $1 billion, and this movie is projected to outgross them opening weekend. So I do think that this movie will absolutely make $1 billion. I would hope that this franchise continues as long as they continue it in the proper way, as long as this becomes more of a Toy Story franchise rather than some of the other ones that Pixar has done, because again, also where everybody ends in this movie is exactly where they started. Literally nobody has grown from the first movie. We're right back where we started, and it's not like there's been a time jump or anything. Like literally, if this movie was not like if they do an Incredibles 3, anything that they do in that movie is not going to be affected by what happened in this movie. They could literally do Incredibles 3 right after Incredibles 1, and you could just take out this movie because nobody progresses in this movie, and the storyline doesn't progress. They all end in the same place as they began. So there's really just nothing that stands out as far as, how this was put together, in my opinion. I don't know, like Pixar, when they do single entries, they're very special. They're heartfelt. They have a meaningful, impactful story to them. But when they do sequels, unless it's like a third, because Cars 3 is pretty good and Toy Story 3 is excellent, unless, when they just do a sequel, it's mainly just a money grab, just being like, what did the audiences like in the first movie? Why did they like it? And they completely missed why they liked it. They go with the very cheap aspects of, this was a funny character that people really liked, and the toys sold well, so we're going to jam this down their throats because that's what audiences want in their mind. So that's an issue with how these sequels are constructed. But I hope that I hope this continues, as long as it continues where they go with Incredibles 3 and they do something that's more in line with Incredibles 1, where they have a meaningful, impactful story telling a superhero story with a twist, because that's what Incredible 1 was. And Incredibles 2 is your bland, basic superhero story without anything that made the first one so special. So there you go. And this is quite a downer review. Of course, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, because I think the general audience is going to like this movie, because again, it's fun. It's fun to watch. But if you actually look at it as a movie, there's not much that is meaningful in this movie at all. It's a lot of fun skits, and I think that general audiences will just enjoy that because they like the skits, because they're good skits, don't get me wrong. So I think general audiences are going to just see that, and they're going to say, hey, when they walk out of the theater, they're going to be like, I had a good time, and that's really all that matters to general audiences for the most part. So I think that in general, people are going to love this movie. So I think that a lot of people are probably going to really disapprove of my thoughts on it, but personally, that's what I thought. The person I saw it with agreed. I am a film major, so of course, I do I look at it more in those terms. And so yeah, so there you go. That's my video review of the Incredibles 2 movie. Let me know what you guys think of it, and thanks so much for watching.